This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the 34th meeting of the full Commission on Recycling Markets and Curbside Recycling. We are going to meet now. We have a shorter meeting than we had. It's only 2.5 hours at this point. We have to end at noon. That was publicly noticed. So we'll start with a quick call to order. If everybody could turn on their camera quickly so I can see, make sure we've got everybody. I think, do we have Commissioner Bouchard? You here? No, we're missing Commissioner Bouchard. And we saw Commissioner Cadena. Commissioner Davis, you here? Yep.
Yep.
Commissioner Dell, are you here? Okay, there she is. Commissioner Dunleavy, are you here? Yep. Okay, Commissioner Ferrante's here. Just Commissioner Kalpkoff's here. Commissioner Lapis, you're here. Commissioner McGrath here. Okay, Osagura, see here? Yep. Myself, Commissioner Schneider, are you on? Do I see you? Yes, I see you, but probably on the phone.
Okay. I am here.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Sky's here. Commissioner Toyota, you're here. Vice Chair Valle's here, and Commissioner Ward. We have everyone except Commissioner Bouchard. Thank you very much. So we do have a quorum. So we'll move on from there to review and potential approval of the meeting minutes from the December 15th commission meeting. Hopefully everybody had time to read them. And if you have, if you're okay with them, you can hear a motion to approve. If not, please make some suggested edits. Anybody?
I'll motion to approve.
Very good. Very good. We have a first and a second. All those commissioners approve, thumbs up. Very good. Is anybody opposed to approving the meeting minutes as written? Okay, then they are adopted. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3, public comment review for items not on the agenda. CalRecycle staff, are there any public comments to read into the record?
Hi, this is Katerina Madavi with CalRecycle. There are currently 5 public comments, 4 relating to thermoforms either submitted during or after the last meeting, and 1 on recycled materials in the production of new packaging.
Great, let's hear them.
The first is an anonymous comment. Question for Driscoll: what are the label initiatives you are following to help recyclability of packaging? Are you using any additive in your packaging that makes recyclability more complex? The second is from
Driscoll, who presented, by the way, if people were not listening, we did have multiple presenters, I think 6 at the Thermoforms meeting, and Driscoll's was one of them. Thank you.
The second is from Kate Eagles with Association of Plastic Recyclers. A recycled content mandate is a demand initiative and requires supply, as Camille just pointed out. A change to the commingled rate must be a part of this if we are going to incentivize PET thermoform sortation to meet recycled PET thermoform content demand. Price is not going up because the market signals remain confused. There is not enough consistent supply for market to stabilize. The third is from Jason Ball with Rotera Corporation. PET thermoforms are extremely important to the PET recycling stream as the demand for rPET has begun to outgrow the supply. We are chemical recyclers of PET and have been doing it commercially for over 22 years. Thermoform PET is a great stream for us, but it is also a great stream to use back into thermoforms and into fiber. The only problem with thermoforms is that some of them are made out of PS, PVC, or PETG, all of which contaminate the thermoform stream and make it harder to recycle the material. If all thermoforms in California were made out of PET, it would be very easy to recycle them and the amount of thermoforms recycled would explode. The fourth is from Camille Herrera with Driscoll's. The revised thermoform proposal states PET bottle-to-bottle manufacturers prefer not to utilize thermoforms since their chemical composition differs from bottles. This is factually inaccurate and must be corrected. Chemically, PET bottles are the same as PET thermoforms. There is no difference in ingredients. The reason PET bottle-to-bottle manufacturers prefer not to utilize thermoforms is because of differences resulting from the manufacturing processes. Bottles are blown molded with a single heat application, whereas thermoforms are manufactured with 2 applications of heat: extrusion first heating, then forming second heating. This results in a difference in intrinsic viscosity, IV, essentially how flexible the PET is. PET bottles have a higher IV than PET thermoforms, so in the recycling process, they flake into different sizes. This affects the yield. Due to the size difference, PET thermoform flakes melt faster than PET bottle flakes, creating an uneven melting process during manufacturing. A. This was the 150-word cutoff for that comment. The entire comment can be viewed on the public comment portal. And the fifth comment is from Tim Shestek with American Chemistry Council. Given the ever-increasing demand for using recycled materials in the production of new packaging, I wanted to pass along this recent announcement highlighting how new technologies are helping to bring more PCR to market. Herbal Essences will be the first Procter & Gamble brand to use Eastman Renew molecular recycled plastic in its packaging. Starting in November, the brand will introduce 5 shampoo and conditioner collections in primary packaging made from Eastman Renew resins with 50% certified recycled plastic. And then www.recyclingtoday.com/article/Eastman Herbal Essences packaging chemically recycled plastic. And that concludes all of the public comments for right now.
Thank you very much. And Tim, maybe I can have an offline with you because I am getting more and more interested in this toxics and recycled content. The studies are coming fast and furious about that, and what testing is done and is it enough to make sure the packaging is safe. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and move on then. And thank you everybody for your comments who made them. We appreciate it. Agenda item 4 is a discussion with CalRecycle on education and outreach. And is there, I think Zoe was going to talk to us about this. Zoe Heller, welcome.
Once again, apologies for the delay today, but glad that we were able to get the meeting up and going. I'll keep this brief so that we can have some conversation about what I'm going to present today. So thank you all for submitting your updated report in December. For today's update, I'm going to announce CalRecycle's iRecycle Smart campaign, which will launch January 24th. If you tuned into our monthly public meeting yesterday, Maria West did a pretty robust discussion, and she unveiled our newest mascot, which is Turner the Turtle. He's a turtle that, is a turtle that represents turning, recycled content into new things. Some of the major campaign elements include digital advertising. We'll have website ads, Hulu, and other streaming platform ads, a new branded website, social media ads, and boosted posts, out-of-home advertisements like ads on shopping carts and bus tails, radio advertising, weather ads across radio networks, NPR. And the campaign is using value-based messaging because CalRecycle's research found that messaging around values that activate pride in recycling was important. I want to highlight a couple of items for the Commission today based on your previous feedback and conversations at previous meetings. First, we heard that statewide education and outreach is needed, but that the local context and details are very important. Additionally, we heard support on messaging around 1383. To help Californians find local information, our website will have a dedicated web page to direct users to local recycling information, and CalRecycle is currently creating a jurisdiction toolkit. Additionally, CalRecycle's 1383 grant program is offering $57 million to local jurisdictions who can apply for a variety of things associated with 1383 implementation. And one of those is education and outreach. Those funds can be used to schedule print and digital advertising, social media advertising, and translating materials into other languages. The first round will be awarded April 1st, and the second round will be awarded September 1st. We're trying to get that money out the door very quickly. CalRecycle will provide marketing and media placement training to jurisdictions to help them maximize their education and outreach budgets. Second, CalRecycle heard your feedback about addressing plastic film in bags, and thank you very much for that. As you are all aware, there's not a universal practice for plastic film in bags throughout the state. However, we address how and when it is a contaminant on our website. So that'll be available as part of that education part of our website for jurisdictions. In closing, I want to highlight an opportunity for ongoing feedback from the Commission that would be really helpful for the department. As mentioned, CalRecycle is working on these jurisdiction toolkits right now. We've heard jurisdictions would really like this, and we want to be able to provide as helpful of information as possible. Right now, we plan to include copies of advertising collateral like digital ads, social media ads, out-of-home ads, radio ads, and video ads, printed collateral like bill stuffers, email campaign templates, training for jurisdictions on how to negotiate advertising contracts, how to schedule effective social media outreach, and how to target specific recycling behaviors, and fact sheets on how to recycle properly and why we should recycle. We welcome the Commission's suggestions to additional toolkit resources. For example, we want to thank LA County for contacting CalRecycle to suggest to include an ambassador program like their COVID-19 ambassador program, and we're exploring how to build something similar around recycling and behavior around using materials. We welcome your creative ideas to expand the reach of the campaign. So with that, I'll wrap and answer any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you, Zoe. That was very helpful. I can tell you when I was in Belgium 10 years ago, their EPR packaging program, which had already been around for almost 20 years, I was bombarded from the time I got off the plane and into the train station with messages about what recycled materials were made into, because their studies showed that people, if they felt that their effort was rewarded with actual recycling into new things and they understood that chain, that they were much more willing to make the effort to recycle. So for example, they had one graphic of a pop bottle and then a pool liner that they actually make them into a pool liner, and then another one that was an aluminum can made into a barbecue grill. But for them, that was the message that was really landing with the public, is showing them exactly what its next life looked like, so that they could put this all together. Because and I think it just it struck me when you were talking, you know, right now there's so much distrust that the system is working at all, that anything's getting recycled, that might be messaging that might work here too. So I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you, Heidi.
And then Commissioners Davis and Dell, please.
Yeah, Zoe, we just finished our initial curbside contamination outreach. It was very structured. We used some online training, card hangers, direct door-to-door contact, and we received some really valuable feedback on messaging, at least in our region. And one of the surprising things was that the message that resonated most closely with our residents was the safety of workers, the people handling material, explosive materials, sharp material. And so I'll share that report with you. But as we're thinking about going forward, we also found that the card hangers were actually more effective than the door-to-door outreach in changing the monitored behavior. We did card audits and could actually observe changes in behavior as a result of the outreach. So I'll share that as well. Now we're talking about next steps, and some of the work that Doug McKenzie Moore has done and shared in his newsletters indicate, like hanging stickers on the carts for people who are doing a good job. So we're going to integrate card hangers and kind of a visual recognition of the people who are recycling right, and hopefully they become leaders as well. So just wanted to share that because it was some different results from what you saw in your surveys. But as we go forward, I think
thank you. Yeah, we would love to see that.
Okay, Commissioner Dahl. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you. Doesn't look like your mic is on though, or you're not muted. Can anybody hear her, or is it just me? Okay. I'm sorry, but you might have to call in on the phone or something. For some reason, your speaker. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and come back to Commissioner Dahl. Maybe she can dial in on the phone. Any other comments on the public outreach? Okay. So hopefully Commissioner Dahl can dial back in. She just dialed out to try and reconnect her system. Well, thank you very much. That's encouraging. I guess the only other thought I had on the turtle is I don't know if you ever watched the skit John Oliver did on Totes and the Goats. It was hilarious, but it was also really kind of like a slam on our industry that we come up with these crazy, things that really don't land with people. And turtles, of course, are endearing for ocean litter protection, but there's so much more to this than just ocean litter. So I hope this is a successful campaign and has been tested well, because we've had too many totes and goats. And I can remember recycle racks, and I'm not sure any of that has ever been successful. So I guess I'd love to see some data, after the first 6-8 months, a year, as to whether that particular campaign is landing with the public. And then Commissioner Ward and hopefully Commissioner Dell will come back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Is that okay if I go? Sorry. Terrific. Thank you. I might have missed a comment, Heidi, that you made that I wanted to voice, which is I'm disappointed with the choice of a turtle for this campaign, because I think it co-ops the public concern over ocean species and plastic pollution. And there's actually no proof that recycling and making something recyclable stops plastic pollution. But I think the ship has sailed and a turtle is on the website, and so be it. I would like to ask Zoe the question of the entire budget put forth in this public education campaign. What percent went to trying to get people to reduce waste, and what percent went to trying to get people to put the right things in curbside budgets? 1%, 99%? Can you give us a feeling for that?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I will work with our Office of Public Affairs and we'll get back to you. We'll treat this as a data request and we'll let you know how the budget was split on the specific messaging components.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so you know, Commissioner Dell, when you're speaking, it was still breaking up, so you might want to turn your camera off when you speak so we can make sure we get every word, but we did understand what you were saying there on percentages of time spent on source reduction versus recycling. Commissioner Ward.
And a follow on to what Commissioner Dell just said, I am curious what CalRecycle's response to our latest proposal that more resources be devoted towards waste prevention outreach, and particularly focused on the companies who are making the decisions to incorporate these materials that end up being contaminants, and what outreach can be done to reduce the introduction of contaminants moving forward. I'd be very interested to hear CalRecycle's responses on those issues.
Sure, Ted, thank you for that question. And as you know, we are right now preparing responses to all of the commission recommendations for the meeting in March. If you'd like something specific to that recommendation earlier, we'd be happy to put our heads together with the director.
March is fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. And Vice Chair Valle?
Zoe, I didn't hear the whole presentation, but on the grants, are those available only to jurisdictions? Are they available to nonprofits and hauling companies that are doing business in jurisdictions?
These local assistance grants are specific to jurisdictions. There was in the budget, I believe it was, I think I said 67 million, specific for 1383 implementation, but we're constantly rolling out grant programs right now as part of that overall circular economy funding that we received in last year and this year's budget. So we'd be happy to share more on those various grant programs if that'd be helpful. We right now are going through the process of selecting the food recovery grants. We just announced yesterday our co-digestion grants, and still to come are our overall organics grants, recycling feasibility grants, and I'm probably missing a few, community composting grants, but those are a few that come to mind. So if there's specific activities that you're interested in funding outside of that and are not a jurisdiction, whether it's education or otherwise, let's chat and we can see with our upcoming grant programs if there'd be a nexus there.
Okay, and just a follow-up question real quick. are there any grants that would be sequestration, or we have a couple of nonprofits in Alameda County that are farming on about 100 acres, farming fresh fruits and vegetables, and then giving them away to people, disadvantaged communities. Is that too much of a reach for 1383?
I think I would need to know a few more specifics. So that would be a good follow-up. I'm wondering if that could fit into one of our, you know, the food waste prevention and recovery grants. So could fall in there. You know, we're going to be doing community composting grants again, which is different. But yeah, so let's talk on specifics and you know, the activity, the dollar amount, et cetera, and we could see if it would fit into any of our existing grant programs or upcoming grant programs.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And I don't see any other comments from commissioners. Are there any public comments on this item?
No public comments on this item, but an additional comment on the policy document.
On the policy document.
It
mean
was
on the
in
third
yes, it's in response to Camille's comment from Driscoll.
Okay, why don't we wait till we get to the item 6, because, and don't let me forget, because I want to make sure we read that into the record before we get another discussion going on that. Okay, thank you. So I think that we're obviously short on time today. So thank you very much, Zoe, for that update. And we really appreciate working with you and being ready to provide feedback on all of this. And if you're okay with it, this next item, I just wanted to start with an overview of what the law says we are and what their appointments meant. So hopefully you can stay available for the next item, which is at the request of Commissioner Donlevy, and we all agreed we would talk about this. And we actually put it off for about a month because we wanted to get the other report out, but this is about the commission structure and management. And I just want to do a quick overview of my understanding, and then Zoe, you can chime in if I got anything wrong. But we were all appointed by Cal EPA/Cal Recycle for 2-year terms. My understanding is this commission is not going away. It was not to be sunsetted. And the director, now Maki Wagner, has all the authority to appoint or remove commissioners at any time for any reason. So that is my understanding, and we would all be up at this point for another 2-year appointment starting in July, I believe. I think we all got our notice May of 2020, and we had our first meeting in June or July. So that's my understanding. If I got that wrong, let me know. And then we did not put any parameters or time limits on chair, vice chair. That's completely open to us to decide. So that the floor is yours, Commissioner Donlevy, and happy because we are at the 3rd quarter of this race, of the 2-year race. It's probably a good time to just at least bring it up and make sure everybody understands where we are, and turn it over to you. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. Am I the only one again? It looked like your mute is off. Maybe Cal Recycle, you've done a mass mute and he can't unmute himself. He's trying to talk and I can't hear him.
I can't hear him either.
I heard
it looks
you.
like he is unmuted in the, as far as from the organizer's perspective.
Yeah, and his mic is green, so he should be able to be heard. Is the volume down or something, Jeff, or is something blocking the?
Try reconnecting that work for Commissioner Dell.
Yeah, sorry, you might have to leave and come back. We'll try to fill some time. In the meantime, are there any commissioners that have questions about the facts of our sitting on this commission or want to raise any issues on this? And then we can wait for any deep discussion until Commissioner Donlevy comes back. Commissioner Ward.
Well, I just think it is challenging to address all of the topics that we've got and have each of the commissioners engaged on the topics that are of greatest concern to them. And in general, I think it's been an overwhelming opportunity And I generally think that Chair Sanborn has done a spectacular job under very trying circumstances with not a lot of support. And so I certainly would like to see the existing structure continue at least through the end of our first round of reports. Maybe we can revisit it then, but in general, I'm very happy with how things are currently moving.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Appreciate that. And Commissioner Donlevy, you're back. Let's see if we can hear you.
How about now? Good morning.
Perfect. Great. Go right ahead.
Alrighty, thank you. And with this item, after the last discussion on the commission meeting, I was willing to pull the item because it didn't seem like anybody other than myself wanted to talk about commission structure or a policy. My thoughts were the amount of work that Chair Sanborn and her organization are doing should be funded and turned over to CalRecycle. So CalRecycle staff is paid to do a lot of the work that Chair Sanborn's nonprofit organization is doing to make sure that there's no undue influence for anybody or any organization, and the work is compensated. The other thing I wanted to talk about is at some point we will hopefully be meeting in person. I think the commission has been a benefactor of COVID and being able to meet remotely, but at some point I think there'll be a normalization of life and we'll have to meet in person. In doing so, a lot of people will incur time and travel costs from all over the state, whether we meet in Sacramento or Southern California. And I think those costs should be covered for all those participating in this. Yes, we're volunteering our time, but if we incur travel and expenses, whether it's from Del Norte or down in the Coachella Valley, those are all expensive trips that I don't think the organizations that we're with should have to incur those costs. So those are the items that I wanted to talk about, but again, based on the last meeting, it didn't seem like anybody wanted to move this forward, so I was happy to pull this.
Thank you. We have a few comments here, so I'm not sure people don't want to talk about it. So we'll start with Vice Chair Valle and then Commissioner Lapis and Sky.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, I hope we have that problem. I really hope that we're going to talk about moving our meetings from LA, San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco, Oakland. That's a problem I really hope that we have, because it'll be normalcy, some sense of normalcy. I don't see that happening in the very near future, but I sincerely hope that we have to have that discussion. Legitimately, when I was first appointed, I had anticipated, yes, traveling from one part of the state to the other, but it never occurred to me to talk about compensation. But I did anticipate that that was going to be something that we would have to do. So let's hope that that does happen and we do have that conversation down the line. In the meantime, I think that strategically the chair, the fact that the chair is so close to the Capitol has given us great access as commissioners to the system of government in the state of California. And she is literally at the pulse of where those decisions are made. I'm way too far. A lot of us are just not there. But the fact that the chair has been there and has those linkages, that's one reason why Heidi was elected chair, because of her linkages, her contacts, her history, and her advocacy for our industry. And I think in the time that she's been in that position, she's proven more than once that she delivers and makes life hard for people who are avoiding issues like taking some responsibility for the products that they put out in the state of California. And the fact that even during COVID, Heidi has traveled north, south, and I think west to invest her time on our behalf and then reported back to us on her findings. And some of those trips have been with legislators. Shows a great deal of commitment. So I like the structure that we have right now, but I do want to say if Alex Oseguera wants to be vice chair, I would gladly step aside. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Commissioners Lapis, Sky, Oseguera, and Schneider are next. Thank you.
I agree with all the comments that were made before. One thing that I'm kind of struggling with, and I think I brought this up before, is I'm not sure CalRecycle really has authority to do only a 2-year appointment for us. I mean, the bill says that they're supposed to convene this group. And I'm not, I mean, the bill is actually pretty clear they can't remove people. I think in effect saying 2-year appointment would kind of be removing people after 2 years and then reappointing new people. And at this point, I'm not sure that there's any serious concerns, but I could see at some point in the future that kind of gets rid of the whole purpose of an independent commission that's advising the department. If the department picks the, it gets to remove anybody they don't like and reappoint somebody new who they do like. And again, not at all speaking about the current administration. I'm just imagining at some point in the future that this could be an issue. I don't know how the group wants to handle that, but I believe we should come up with our own system for when people step down or reapply, and leave CalRecycle the authority to appoint new people. But I think it's a decision we should make, not be forced on us.
That's very interesting. And maybe I'm looking at the law right now. It says the department shall convene the commission consisting of representatives of public agencies, private and solid waste enterprises, and environmental organizations with expertise in recycling. So it said convene. So, and there's no regulations that would further give definition to this. Zoe, are you on? Did you want to speak to this at all, or any of the legal staff at CalRecycle, or maybe I can see Zoe just turned her mic on.
Yeah, and the only guiding document there is statute. So my recommendation is to just refer to statute as you're doing, and that does have clear authority for the department and clear authority for the commission. Early on, you all developed the charter, and I recommend maybe dusting that off and reviewing that for where some of this other information could potentially be coming from.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking too, is that we could have a 2-person committee working and revisiting the charter to address some of the issues being raised here. So we'll just keep that in the back of our mind while we hear more comments. So thank you, Commissioner Lapis, very helpful. Commissioner Sky, and then Oseguera.
Thank you. I have a few things to raise, and I definitely agree with all the comments earlier. I think our chair has been incredible and a huge boon. I do think it's good to have routine elections to confirm the direction of the commission, and I think that's part of our charter now. It would be helpful to get feedback from CalRecycle about what input the director would like for us to provide, particularly in terms of filling vacancies, or if there isn't really a need to fill the vacancy that was created. Ultimately, I think some rotation of the membership of the commission would be helpful, but we should be maybe developing recommendations for what the terms should look like. And I'm sure at some point some of us will want to step off and create room for others to join. In terms of meeting in person, I don't know that that's a requirement. It's certainly not written into statute, and I think there's an incredible value in meeting virtually, so I'll just throw that out there. And then the last point I'll make is in terms of the benefits that we're getting from NSAC, and I think the more important issue, I've never seen a concern about that having any undue influence, because it's primarily record keeping and information sharing. But in the long term, I don't know that it's sustainable if we have a different chair, or if Heidi ultimately does retire from the commission, those services are incredibly valuable. And right now there isn't a budget in CalRecycle to provide a similar service. And even if a budget was available, I don't know that CalRecycle could provide some of those benefits, for example, maintaining the Google Docs. So that's definitely something worthwhile to discuss, but thankfully it's not an issue now, and I'm certainly hoping that Chair Sanborn can stay on for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sky. Commissioner Oseguera?
Yeah, I want to echo Vice Chair Valles and Ward's comments. I do want to comment on, the Vice Chair and the Chair have created a collaborative and consensus building environment, which, I think everyone's voice on the commission is being heard. Individual commissioners are involved in the topics they would like to be involved. It's very inclusionary, not exclusionary. If people definitely want to participate in different areas, both the chair and the vice chair have created that environment where that gets accomplished. I think that we also have to point to the success of the commission in terms of bringing forward recommendations that have actually resulted in laws, which also points it's not actually patting ourselves in the back, but the group, the voices on this commission are working. And so I think that is something that we should be able to talk about and highlight. I think, as Commissioner Sky mentions, there should be a process that we discuss if individuals that are in good standing decide to leave the commission, what should be the process for appointment or recommendations on that. But I think that if commissioners, individual commissioners, are in good standing and contributing to the commission, there should be no reason why those individuals need to be off the commission. And then one final comment on Vice Chair Valles' comment. He's doing a wonderful job as a vice chair. So I recommend he continues along with the chair. So those would be my comments, Heidi.
Thank you very much, and I would agree. And I thought he did a fantastic job on that video that I did not have time to do. So I was eternally grateful, and he represented us all so well. Commissioner Schneider, and then Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Comment on membership. In terms of terms, I would love to keep it flexible and open, but I think all of us were chosen because we came with specific backgrounds. So when someone steps off, are we filling just that select background or a range of background? Because all of us, I think, have been in the field a very long time and having worn multiple different hats. So I think the skill set is important in terms of commission representation. And I hope that in the future we maintain that our CalRecycle's director recognizes the skill set that we each bring. In terms of virtual meetings, as an elected official ourselves, I agree with Vice Chair Valle that it looks like we're going to be staying virtual. Local cities that have gone to in-person immediately reverted back to virtual because the various variants, we just don't know what they're going to do. However, I believe that in the future, for local government anyway, hybrid meetings of some form will be the future. What we have found is so much more participation by the public in a virtual meeting. And local governments, we meet at night, it's dinner time, it's putting the kids to bed, etc. For this committee, it just allows people from all over the world to participate. So perhaps if we look at structure in the future, and I'm not sure legally how we do this, but maybe we ask the legislators to allow us to continue in some form, in some hybrid form in the future. In person, there's nothing better than in person, to be honest, but this is so much better for transparency and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent comments. I've definitely noticed it seems to be the great equalizer as far as access to have these remote meetings. Commissioners Davis, and then I think that's it.
Yeah, actually, in consideration of what Commissioner Schneider just said, there was some statutory relief on public meetings, but we're under Bagley-Keene, and that relief was different than it is in the Brown Act. It was a little puzzling as I was reading it. but the Brown Act bodies, like a city council, have to take a continuing exemption based on the necessity to avoid public meetings. We don't have that, so I agree. I think that's an issue that we should try to get addressed. We can hold public meetings, but it requires some notification that makes it awkward for some people. So, but I wanted to bring up another Bagley-Keene point that I think has been referenced a few times, but going forward, I think really needs to be addressed. We've been told that, first of all, no more than 2 commissioners can discuss a topic, and that we cannot, even with the 2 of us, discuss topics with any outsiders. So we have to go one-on-one, come back to the commission. It's a very awkward way to develop policy. I'm almost, next month I'll be 50 years working under the Brown Act, and I've read Bagley-Keene. I'm puzzled by the advice that we can't talk to outsiders while we're doing work as a working committee. I'm puzzled by the 2-person limit, since the law actually says we can't have serial meetings involving more than a majority of the commission, but not being able to work with people who are knowledgeable and expert in their field really is limiting. So I don't know how we go about getting clarification on that, but at least the second point, that we should, if we have 2-person working committees, we ought to be able to talk to experts and together and bring that information back. Right now, we're having to have presentations to the commission to work our way around that limitation, and I think it's counterproductive going forward. So thanks.
Thank you. And then it looks like we do have Commissioner Ward would like to speak.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Davis just mentioned, and I do think that is important. And we're an advisory group. So following all of Bagley-Keene as if we're actually making decisions that are then carved in stone, to me is a little bit of overkill, and it does stifle for the conversation. One other thing, as long as we're talking about structure and management, I thought I would highlight, which is the amount of time that we spend focused on model bill related issues. And they're all of concern, and particularly in my case, I'm very concerned about buybacks and the continuation of that system. But for a relatively small fraction of the materials that are managed, it consumes, a disproportionate fraction of our discussion time. And I don't know if there's a way to parse that out a little bit, but I would love it if we could focus on the bigger issues and larger percentages of the discard stream that we're trying to manage than to spend 30% of our time talking about 2% of the waste stream.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. I think it's 4%, but still very low amounts and non-toxic. Okay, so after hearing all those comments, just a couple of thoughts I'll throw out and see where you all land on this. So, and just so you know where I am, when I applied to be, I was actually asked, I wasn't even going to do it, apply to be a commissioner because I didn't think it would do anything. And that's why I applied to be chair, because I thought if I'm going to invest 2 years of my life after 30 years in this industry on something, I really want to give it my best shot to make sure it's going to work. And I couldn't be more delighted with how this commission has worked together. And I'm super, super proud of all of us for working the way we have and being as effective as we have. So just so you know, I had thought about, this is unsustainable. It's taking too much time. I'd prefer to delegate some of these things if others can help on the commission with recording these meetings and doing things like that. But I'm honored to serve as chair, and as long as you would like it and it works for me and we're being effective, I want to stay because we're making a huge difference. So just so you know where my head is at. I think we need some input from CalRecycle, because I'm not sure that CalRecycle is in this. I don't know if their legal opinion is the same as far as their ability to appoint and remove. So I want to make sure we have that straight first. So Zoe, maybe that's a data request we'll put in today to make sure that we understand exactly legally where you believe we are, since even though we're independent, we do need legal advice, and to me, that's advice that you are developing for your own appointing decisions and so forth. The charter, it is probably time to revisit it and have some changes before the end of June. And so if there's a couple of commissioners that would like to work on that and revisit the charter, I think it probably the vice chair, maybe you could lead something like that and revisiting that charter and work with one of the other commissioners to give us some suggestions on how it might be updated. Would that be?
Sure, Madam Chair. I just want to add to that, to the charter. I haven't looked at it in a while, but is there, has been suggested by one of the commissioners in our discussion, that, for example, we have one seat open at this moment, that we talk about inserting a process where the commission could also look at filling those seats, because that seat that's been open has been open for quite a while, and I have not heard an update on the status. So I wanted to know, can we add that to discussion on the charter?
Yes, we can. And we did hear from Zoe that the director did not plan to make an appointment. And I'm not even sure that there's like a number, you know. I think that the law, the way I read it, was exact as far as there should be representatives of these different groups. It didn't say the total number, and it didn't say number of representatives per group. That was just the initial CalRecycle appointment. But again, I think it would be great to get a data request and get some clarity from CalRecycle on these things before we go changing the charter. So, okay, if you're open to working on the charter, if anybody else is interested, obviously, before we end this discussion, let us know. That's one thought. The other thought is, I do not think we are going to get complete and robust public input if we do not remain at least remote or at least a hybrid model after the pandemic is over. Personally, that would have been a burden too much for my organization if I had to be paying to travel and taking all that time away from my organization in addition to the time I'm already taking. So I will not be able to ever probably travel. I will do my best to piggyback on my existing travel, but I mean, that's just a lot of money and time without any funding. So a hybrid model is what I would support, and I would encourage whoever the powers that be allow us to do that forever, because it is the great equalizer, and people that work and have children and other responsibilities can still comment while they're dealing with their kids and schoolwork and everything else, but they can't if they have to physically go somewhere and wait in line. The other thing is I just want to highlight, everybody on this commission has taken a risk. We've been a target for groups that are not happy with our decisions and things that we have decided were not under our purview. And we've had public information requests that were quite broad. They were thinned down, but I think we're all, I just want to again congratulate the commissioners for stepping up and being willing to do this, because there are risks putting ourselves out there with strong opinions on certain things that some large groups with a lot of money just don't like. And I think that that's part of the feedback to the legislature too, is that's why these commissioner recommendations are so important. We're taking a risk doing this too. And again, thank you to everybody. And I totally agree with Commissioner Davis on the serial meeting and two-person thing. I've never seen it to be this restrictive. I, as you know, serve on an elected board of 7, and we can talk all day amongst 3 of us. We cannot go to 4. But what I don't understand is this 2 thing, especially now that we're back to basically full commission meetings. And unless, for example, we have the committee on thermoforms, we couldn't have a majority of that committee convening behind closed doors on something. But that has always befuddled me, and it's very, very restricting. And I think we could move even faster if that were found to be a different ruling. So I see some there's a public comments, and there's then Commissioner Sky and Lapis.
The public comment is anonymous. I believe that by having new professional on the recycling industry, not only on the solid waste area, would be beneficial. Think about people with actual reclaiming and transformation, as well as end markets.
Thank you. Commissioner Sky?
Just to build on the comments about the hybrid model and how valuable that could be going forward, I know that the statute lays out which areas we're supposed to provide recommendations to the legislature, but perhaps in the next report, when we talk about the challenges that our commission faces, we can talk about Bagley-Keene and all the issues that were raised here and highlight some areas where, you know, if some state legislative staff were reading it, they could pick up some ideas on how to improve that system.
Great idea. Commissioner Lapis.
Yeah, I also wanted to kind of echo John's comments about the interpretation of Bagley-Keene. It seems incredibly limiting that we can't talk to more than one other person. I've never known any public board that operate that way. And I feel, I mean, you know, having dealt with other public boards like the Air Board and the Water Board, they don't operate that way. That's not the way the Waste Board used to operate. I'm wondering if maybe we should get an outside legal opinion, maybe from Ledge Counsel, to advise us on that, because that just seems so limiting. And again, my interpretation is you can't have a majority of the board meeting, including through serial meetings. But that's always been my understanding, and I think it would be good to get that clarified before we review the charter, to maybe amend that in the charter.
Great idea.
And then one more comment on the virtual versus in-person meetings. I mean, I've been one of the people who's wanted in-person meetings because I think they're a little more effective. I feel like it's easier to reach consensus and actually get into the meat of issues when you're not having to put asterisks in the chat. If you can kind of have more of a back and forth and you're in person, and it's not, you know, necessarily, it almost feels like we're making, you know, public press release statements every time we unmute ourselves here versus, you know, previous in-person work groups have always been much more productive. Not that we haven't been productive, but in terms of resolving thorny issues and really getting down to the details. That said, I do totally agree with the comments about accessibility and allowing everybody to participate. So I do like the idea of some kind of hybrid that would allow people to participate from all over the state, but also give some kind of in-person ability, at least, you know, maybe for work groups or for individual topics or something along those lines.
Thank you. I would suggest, I like that idea a lot about getting a Ledge Counsel opinion. If there's somebody who has, Nick, I know you do, you can probably, or we can work on it together, but to see if we can ask for that request through maybe Senator Eggman's office, who formed the commission, have them ask, because this has been a hindrance for us actually operating, and I don't want, I mean, it really slows us down when we can't talk to other people outside. And as the gentleman asked, you know, this has happened before where we've asked that, you know, producers and others have wanted to be on this commission. I've said my public thing on this is that this is the one space we've all had where we can, at the back end of the system, really have a voice that's been very effective and take all that input. But they don't need to have a vote on the commission, and especially when it's consensus, because that's basically a complete ability to stop progress. So those are my thoughts on that. So I would suggest first we get a group of two. We do a data request of CalRecycle. We ask Senator Eggman's office to see if they can do a Ledge Counsel opinion on the Bagley-Keene rules and how many of us can get together and talk, and with inside and outside groups, and that we set up, you know, we ask for hybrid, and I would also like to see if we can have another commissioner take over the responsibility of recording these meetings. We're happy to upload them where they are. Somebody has to do it. We've already done it. We're happy to upload them, but if somebody else could record them, that would be great. And then to take some load off of my organization. And I also think it would be great. Commissioner Ward and I have spent just untold hours writing these reports. The next one's coming due, and it would be fantastic. I think if somebody else could work with Commissioner Ward, he's so good at this, at putting together, and I'm looking at Commissioner Sky because you're very articulate and very good with words. If that's something you would be interested in taking stabs at this next report and bringing them back to and doing that, thank you very much. That would be fantastic. And then that really does help me a lot. And because I think we're going to be, Vice Chair and I are going to be more and more facing outward, trying to get the word out about what this commission is doing. So that internal work, I already do a lot. It would help a lot to not have to work on that.
Chair Sanborn, we're using this platform, GoToMeeting. I mean, I would have to, ask internally for our policies whether we could use the platform we use and record. But, we use Microsoft Teams. It's being used across the country. A lot of folks use it. Or there's others. I mean, that's not the only one, right? But if we could use something like that, then I just think it would be a lot easier for someone to take that burden off of you. Because I know that then it would be very easy for me to press record and send the recording over, right? But it's a major platform, just like Zoom and others. So I don't want to say any specific one. But is that something that you'd be interested in, or do we have to keep to go?
Well, that's a great question. And that was one of my concerns about this platform from the beginning, was that we're not really easily able to let people talk to us. They have to type things in, and then they have to pre-register with CalRecycle in order to open the mic up. But I wouldn't care at all. I would like a much easier platform to get more two-way conversation, which would feel more real and in the room. And Teams, I know, has been used, SMUD uses Teams a lot of it because it's safer, actually, too. There's security issues. Commissioner Sky, did you want to speak to that?
Just very briefly, I know that staff is already recording using the GoToMeetings recording function, and I don't know where those end up residing or what format they're in. But as a quick fix, if there's a way to get those files uploaded rather than having to recreate that.
The problem we were having is the amount of time, and they are not posting them. You have to do a public information request every time. They don't live anywhere online. And that has been a giant burden on us, because I have to go back sometimes and rewatch the meeting to make sure the minutes are right and to make sure I understood what happened correctly, because there's so much that happens in a meeting. I just can't retain it all. I don't think anybody could. So that's why we started doing it, and we just never stopped. Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on your, make sure I understood this. What I heard you say was that essentially you're backing out from the overall document shepherding role, and I'm working with Kobe on that moving forward for this next report. Is that correct?
Yes, if that would be okay with you, instead of me working with you on the two-person, it would be you and Kobe.
Fine. Then my follow-up question on that is that I'd work closely with you to try to set the tone and make sure the message was, in keeping. And while it's not, I don't view that text of the report as having the same import as the policy recommendations. It is important that there be a consistency. And so I've appreciated that conversation. So I want to make sure that with the two-person, three-person thing, we can still do that. Again, this is...
My preference would be 3 of us could be doing this, but we have to get that, okay. So I will be asking, so on my plate to do is I will talk with Senator Eggman's office about getting a Ledge Council ruling on this opinion about this meeting in the Brown Act, and we can share what CalRecycle gave us. But boy, that would make it a lot easier, because then I could be participating and give you oral feedback without having to do all the writing and every word.
All of that, right. So,
yeah.
And I'm totally fine with working with Commissioner Sky. I agree. He's a very well-spoken individual. I think
yes.
The report will be good from that.
Great. Okay, so to wrap this up, I will request from Senator Eggman to see if they are comfortable asking Ledge Council about this ruling about these two-person meetings, and to see if that's really the line that we must live by, because that would change a lot if we could be more of us could be working together on different things and working with outside the commission as well. We'll have Vice Chair Valle, and we'd like to get somebody else to work with Vice Chair Valle on the charter. Is there anybody else who would like to start working and reviewing the charter. Any updates to it? Don't all jump in at once.
I'll help Vice Chair Valle on that.
Oh, great, Commissioner Osagura, and that's fantastic. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, and that's something we could put on, so that'll be like a 2-person committee. We could have a separate agenda item at the next meeting or put that under, I think it's a separate agenda item though, because that's how we operate. So we'll discuss that at the next meeting or the meeting after, depending on when you tell us something is ready for discussion. Then I'm going to give the report writing to Commissioner Sky with Commissioner Ward, and we do need to get started on that and cleaning it up from the last policies and what's already been done versus not. So that's fantastic. And then if there's anybody who wants to record these and upload them, let us know. It's actually not super hard. It just takes another computer and just somebody to run it and then upload it, so we can keep doing it for now. But again, we all want to be sustainable too. So it's something to think about. Is there anything I missed? Okay. Well, Commissioner Donlevy, that was a very well-timed discussion. So I do really appreciate you asking to put it on the agenda and the consideration for all these issues. And and Cal Recycle, we need the information request on what you believe your authority is on appointments and removals to this commission, because if that differs from our understanding, we don't want to get sideways with our appointing body. So please let us know. Okay, so now we are way behind schedule after starting late, but that was a very important discussion. Thank you all again very much for it. And then we'll move on to, I don't see any other comments. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 6, which is policy discussions and reports. I think we'll start very quickly. Well, actually, we only had 2 updates given, at least to me. One was the update on the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality work in Oregon. That can wait. I know a lot of people are waiting to hear us get to this one, which is the thermoforms policy update. And I want to thank all the commissioners that sat on that committee and all the people who made great presentations to us on January 5th. And at that meeting, we asked Commissioner Osagura to join Commissioner Davis to revise the policy based on the feedback the commissioners on that committee gave to them. And they had, we have uploaded this to the meeting today, track changes, which are significant. So this would be considered a first reading of that policy. So with that, and this is where we also had public comment. So thanks for reminding me, Laura. Why don't we read that public comment and then we'll turn it over to Commissioners Osagura and Davis.
Yeah, there are 2 public comments related. So the first one is an anonymous, excuse me. It is from Laura Stewart with NAPCOR. It is Camille's comment on this sentence being factually inaccurate is correct and must be changed for the reasons she noted. PET bottle-to-bottle manufacturers prefer not to utilize thermoforms since their chemical composition, intrinsic viscosity, differs from bottles. The chemical composition is PET. Additionally, the following sentence, alternatively, PET bottles and thermoforms may be downcycled together into carpet and other products. We suggest the following. Alternatively, PET bottles and thermoforms may be utilized in end markets such as PET thermoforms, carpet, other fibers, and strapping.
Okay. So they're commenting on the changes to this policy. The wording is actually not what they're agreeing with. So we'll have to look at that. And that's already been published, so we can grab that language. Okay, thank you.
The second comment is from Paul Bahu with Global Plastics Recycling. Does the commission think it would be wise to add a wider variety of voices to the mix? I've noticed there is nobody representing the viewpoints of the bottling industry, wash line processors, thermoforming manufacturers, etc. on this 16-member body.
I'll repeat myself ad nauseum on this one, and then commissioners can weigh in if they would like to. This commission was set up to help advise Cal Recycle, and we are set up to do consensus advice. And it was in the law who was going to sit on this commission, and it did not include, I'll read it again just to make sure everybody's clear. The commission will consist of representatives of public agencies, private solid waste companies, and environmental organizations with expertise in recycling. If you would like to change the law, I suggest you talk to Senator Eggman. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to Commissioners Osigura and Davis to review the changes that they made to the policy and why, and then we'll take comments.
If you'd like, Commissioner Davis, I'll take a stab at doing probably the overall, just a starting comment, and then Commissioner Davis then did the final drafting and the language. We both worked on it together. But as the commission discussed in a previous session, we tried to make sure that we bifurcated the thermoform discussion from the bottle bill discussion. I think to Commissioner Ward's comment previously, you know, we've spent a lot of time on the bottle bill, and I think that's a separate discussion and recommendation and topic that we should address at some point, but I'm going to put that to the side. So both Commissioner Davis and I attempted to get the discussion in this document back to thermoforms, concentrated on three major areas: content, right, increased content and utilization of this material, market creation and cost coverage for additional sorting or separation, and an incentive program for separation that is not directly connected to the existing infrastructure of the bottle bill, but it's a separate incentive program that is funded and has its own funds. So Commissioner Davis, I'll just leave it there. Those are the broad three items that we tried to address. Please jump in. And obviously, Commissioner Davis has done a wonderful job, and others, in putting this together. So I played just a part of providing additional input to Commissioner Davis, but that has done, once again, the bulk of the work and a wonderful job here. So those are the major things that we try to do. So truly create a thermoform recommendation so that we can get to consensus versus a complete, I think, mixture of two different topics. So over to you, Commissioner Davis.
And feel free to share your screen if you'd like and track live if you want to. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this actually is the third go round with the policy. It started with Commissioner Sanborn, and then Commissioner Donlevy and I worked on it following the initial discussions to the commission. So I think the commissioners proposing has become a little more convoluted than any of the other documents. And as the chair mentioned, this really becomes a first reading again. I think it's that revised. So let me start scrolling through the changes. I believe the public comment that was read, I think, points to this sentence. We had comments at the committee about the ability to actually incorporate some percentage of thermoforms into PET bottle manufacturers. So the original sentence was modified, and now we've got language suggesting it should be modified again, which we could take under consideration, even though it came as a public comment, but it's a comment specific to this item. So we could certainly look at that. And Commissioner Osigura, I don't know if you were able to capture it. I looked briefly at the online comment. The next sentence is an addition. This was information that was provided to the committee about the bales with the lowest percentage of thermoforms also showed the highest PET content. So, and there's a footnote to track that because it was put on the Google Drive for the committee work. Took out a sentence that was you know, we couldn't really verify the likelihood of non-PET materials polluting communities with weak environmental controls. I think we all know it to be true, but it wasn't really necessary. And trying to have very clear language, so we modified this paragraph about PET bales. Just added a short clarifier on AB 478 for installed in the California Senate. We removed a paragraph that was actually modified later and moved, but this was, I think, part of what Commissioner Oseguera alluded to, that if we get too close into trying to discuss the statewide issues with CRV programs, so kind of modified the original sentence to hone in on the individual commingled rate, which was part of the initial recommendation that Commissioner Sanborn and I developed. The lack of, when CalRecycle stopped doing individual commingled rates, then it creates issues around the very situation we're talking about, where some MRFs are pulling thermoforms and have different concentration of CRV in their material. As Commissioner Donlevy pointed out, though, it's really based on ship materials. So we tried to later on address that through the Quality Incentive Program. And this paragraph about the Quality Incentive Program is unmodified from the original draft. So we did hear at the committee an update on the QIP program, but we're not going into depth on that. And again, in the way of background, just added a sentence on MRFs making bottle-to-bottle bales, and it's still a little bit unclear about the acceptance of thermoforms. I've heard it both ways, so we modified, with Commissioner Oseguera's input, modified this, added a sentence to just emphasize that it's not really clear how much contamination is acceptable, and you heard public comment earlier about that. So added a short paragraph here about increasing recycled content from thermoform manufacturers. They're using PET bottles to have recycled content in their products. However, as we noted, there's going to be an increased demand for those bottles for bottle-to-bottle recycling. And then we just heard a public comment about modifying this last sentence, and that seems fine. It just expands on the use of thermoforms in manufacturing other products. The issue that is addressed in the following paragraph really comes from the author of AB 478, and we modified on Commissioner Oseguera's recommendation, since this 200 million pounds apparently is an estimate, even though it's a quote directly from the author. There's no damage in taking it out. The point is that there's a low collection rate for thermoforms, and that minimum content requirements for thermoforms would help drive that collection rate, particularly in the context of PET bottle demand. So that's all by way of background. As we said, this is a major rewrite. I wanted to go through it closely. Added a sentence to the purpose, cleaned up the initial language, and then added some sentences that Commissioner Oseguera drafted about the need to adopt a financial mechanism involving producers to offset the cost differential between the price to recycle and the value. I think this is consistent with a lot of our other discussions on producer responsibility. Without being specific, try to pull the producers into supporting this, the need to close the gap between the value of thermoforms and eliminate the incentive, if there are any, to sell thermoforms in PET bales and get paid at PET bottle rates. So the proposal itself, we pulled the first sentence on number 1, pulled it up as Commissioner Lapis recommended during the commission or during the committee meeting, moved it to the top, and then moved another minimum content requirement language to follow on the need to have recycled content requirements for thermoforms. The next sentence doesn't format properly here, but it is number 2, that CalRecycle should either resume individual commingle rate surveys or establish a PET bottle bale commingle rate that applies to those MRFs with higher percentages of CRV containers. So this is consistent with the very initial draft that the chair and I worked on, with language added that the incentive should come from separate funds and not affect current commingle rate mechanisms or other funded programs, and aligned with what Commissioner Oseguera mentioned about the impact on the overall CRV program. Number 3, I think, was moved, but it's essentially unchanged from the prior draft. CalRecycle should pursue authority to utilize any unexpended funds from the initial $10 million QIP authorization. And so we heard that, actually this was modified somewhat, because we heard from during the discussion of the quality incentive program that there's likely to be very few MRFs that will qualify. So the expectation is there's going to be money left over of the $10 million, and there could be quite a bit of the $10 million left over after the first year. So this recommendation would be to continue to utilize that $10 million to incentivize the recovery of thermoforms by creating cleaner PET bottle bales. The QIP threshold is actually set in legislation, and the dollar value is set in legislation, and so we added language that those should be reviewed and revised if it's appropriate to incentivize recovery. The next recommendation, developing functional markets with pricing supported by the manufacturers to drive supply of materials. So just a restatement of that concept that it's really up to the manufacturers. If they want this, they should be paying for it.
I have a quick question. And then there's Commissioner Dell's been waiting for quite a while, and Commissioner Lapis, but this seems very general. The producers, it's not clear to me what the recommendation is on the producers actually paying for.
I'm going to call on Commissioner Oseguera on that one.
Here, Heidi, for example, what we looked at is in terms of the presentation, they looked at the price that they were paying for PET thermoform bales. And if you recall during that presentation, the price was actually dropping and not increasing. And I understand there was a public comment regarding this, but when you have a low supply of a material and there's a high demand for it, right? Economic theory, pretty basic here, is prices go up to chase the supply. And so this paragraph intends to address that issue, not in a programmatic yet way, right? A very specific way, but says if the users of this material want it, they have to begin to drive the supply, which means an increased price for what they need. What can happen is what was shown on this graph. Now, mind you, I didn't look at the math behind the graph, so I'm taking it for what it was, a presentation from folks in the industry saying, well, we have this phenomenon happening where the price is dropping, but we know there's a tremendous amount of supply. We want the material, but it's not coming. That goes against everything in terms of how markets work. And so here we're trying to address that, Heidi, not once again in a specific way, but how do we get the pricing correctly to start actually increasing supply and driving it to the folks that want to use it? I don't know if
Yeah, that makes total sense. And the one thing I think we have unique in this situation is they have an alternative, and that's virgin plastic, which is getting a lot of economic support. And that is a whole nother policy recommendation that we have about not undermining the economics of recycling. So that it's seeming like our policies are starting to all come together, because they can choose the virgin over the recycled if the recycled's more costly.
Yeah, and that's a different question, right? But if we have a significant demand for this material, clean thermoform PET bales, right? Truly, there's a tremendous demand for it. The pricing that curve should be looking the other way. What they should be saying is, hey, even though there's high prices, there is no supply. It's actually the graph that they showed explains what's happening. We're not paying for this type of material, thus we don't get it. Yes, that's right. That's how it works.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis, did you want to just let a couple of people comment on the stuff they've already heard, and then we can finish at the end there, or?
Yeah, however, we're almost at the end. And,
okay, why don't you go ahead and finish them?
Might be good to finish in case some of the comments are anticipating what is or isn't here. But yeah, yeah, we can get there pretty quickly. There's no change. Number 5 was just renumbered because of movement. Number 6 was the language that Commissioner Dunleavy had specifically addressed on the need to change the method of setting commingled rates. And I think this is the point that Commissioner Oseguera made, that it's a bigger picture issue. I do note, though, that the quality incentive payment is based along the lines of Commissioner Dunleavy's comment, that it's based on ship material, not incoming loads. So, but given the framework that Commissioner Oseguera mentioned, I think number 6 was removed from this draft. And the new number 6 expands on language that was in the prior, setting a commingle rate for PET bales with a lower contamination threshold. So it's an amplification of what was up above. And that, I believe, yeah, that's it for the changes. So we can go with comments.
Yep. Okay, Commissioner Dowell, then Lapis, and Ward, and Baye.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, beautifully.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that I am very disappointed by the committee, the Thermoform committee meeting. We all didn't get to be on it. It was quickly decided to be a committee, not a full commission meeting. And the way the rules work, this is odd. The way the rules work is you can have a committee meeting, but commissioners aren't allowed to make public comments. We need to get that fixed too. If we're going to have committee meetings, which I question whether we should, because at this point we're talking about issues. If 9 people want to be in a call, then we all should make it a commission meeting, right? So I listened to that committee meeting, and there were so many false statements made. It throws into question everything that was said. I could give you a detailed fact check of it, and I wasn't allowed to make comments on this. But the biggest one I'm going to make was the comment that was made at the very beginning by the equipment manufacturer from Texas. And I do think it's important that We note what Commissioner Oseguera said during the committee meeting, which all these companies there are for-profit companies talking about things that will help their bottom line. And when we have companies come and do that and then just make statements, and these statements are false or aren't fact-checked, and now it's in the public record, it looks as if they're true. And the number one statement that I have to absolutely fact-check here is that it was said that there is no paper product that doesn't have PFAS or plastic or a toxic that could become a clamshell or a food service product. And that's simply not true. There's at least 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 companies making these right now. I will show the one that's being sold by ConAgra. Total Fiber Bowl, no PFAS, no plastic lining. Nestle, I got this in the UK. They're now putting candy in paper, fully recyclable, no PFAS, no plastic. They're switching from plastic to paper. Key message here, we're not stuck with plastic clamshells. They don't have to exist. We don't have to look at this as an end of pipe problem like, oh, how can we figure out how to use this material that has to come at us? We can do material changes. And I do want to reemphasize that we can't have committee meetings where people are excluded. And I also think we need the rules changed such that if commission members listen into another meeting, they should be able to ask. Now I want to address this particular policy recommendation. It was last brought up in December. Over the holidays, I spent more than 100 hours researching the toxicity of food grade plastic. Around the first week of December, big reports came out. This report by Stina, it's S-T-I-N-A, you'd think it was Steina, but it's Stina, I'm told. It used to be called More Recycling. They're actually a consultant for the plastic industry. They did a report for the Canadian government on the availability of food grade plastic. Let me quote from this. The vast majority of plastic products and packaging produced each year and placed on the market is not suitable for processing into food grade PCR. This is required reading. This is our moral authority, our moral responsibility to read this if this commission is going to make recommendations around what should become food grade plastic for the children and people of California. I'm a chemical engineer who spent 35 years trying to clean up the problems made by people who didn't know better, people who put chromium in water in Hinkley and caused cancer. I've had cancer. It's not fun. We have to adopt the precautionary principle right now, put a pause on this idea that plastic can be recycled back into food grade plastic, easy squeezy. The FDA's website says straight out, metal and glass is different. Plastics are very, very complicated. When you read this, and I've got a whole list of other papers to read, the consensus is the one stream that the one type of product that could potentially be safe right now would be PET bottles. But actually, we only have the lawyers and the beverage companies to thank for this. The FDA does not have a strong process, okay? I agree, let the record show, I agree with the Association of Plastic Recyclers. We should not push for food grade plastic in this because I do not believe it's safe. The FDA process is inadequate, it's lagging. The industry gets to self-control it. Look at this. Look what is sold at Home Depot, a PVC clamshell. Yep, that was on a toilet flapper replacement. Do you know what happens when PET flakes? Oh, it sure looks a lot alike. Wait, I get to get this in front of my camera. Sure looks like that clamshell, doesn't it? Well, this ends up in this. You know what we get in this? You know what we get in PET? Benzene. Benzene. All right. So the collection stream to make this into recycled content for food grade is not safe. We have to throw down the precautionary principle. There is a ton of science, including coming from industry consultants who work for the plastics industry, and we need to stop on this. So I absolutely cannot support mandating content. We cannot be pushing risky plastics into food grade products just to keep some plastics out of the landfill. We've got to look for alternative auctions. And as a
Okay.
part of that, I would like to put on an asterisk real quickly. I would like to start a committee on food grade plastic. I have a policy recommendation I'd like to bring up in 2 weeks from now, which is about getting PVC out of our packaging stream. And then lastly, around the money, this is all getting really complicated. You start talking about the bottle bill and anything in money. And I am going to put the gauntlet down on this. No public funds should be given from the bottle bill or any other public funds to promoting plastic recycling, or from the bottle bill, certainly, until there's reverse vending machines for every 4,000 people in this state. No more money should go to MERS. Why don't we have reverse vending machines that people can all take this back in? I went to Europe. They're all over, reverse vending machines. There's no bottle pollution anywhere. They have high recycling rates. You can give a donation to somebody. So I can absolutely not support any kind of public funding. Lastly, and I could go on, but lastly, to Commissioner Osagura's comment, this is economics 101. On that call, the producers complained, they said, huge demand, we really want it back. Oh, but the price is so low. It doesn't add up. That actually means there's not demand for it. And we, as California stewards of taxpayer money recommendations, should not be propping up artificial markets. Markets are only sustainable when they actually come from true supply and demand, which is what we're seeing from PET bottles right now. Thank you.
Okay, so I heard in there somewhere a recommendation that what we don't meet separately in committees anymore, because I agree these rules are very restrictive, and that's a good comment. We just might not get quorums at all of them, but I think we should think about that when we form other groups. And then you were talking about toxics and plastics. You wanted to form another committee, is that right?
Yep, a two-person committee, and I would like to enter a policy recommendation. We can talk about that later in this call if we have time.
Yep.
I have an idea for a policy recommendation to protect the PET stream.
Okay, very good, thank you. Commissioner Lapis and then Ward.
Hey, unfortunately, I have a slight disagreement with my friend Jan. I think that this is a great policy. I really appreciate the folks who are able to put their head together and sort of reach a consensus on an issue that the legislature had not reached a consensus on. I think this was very well put together. I like the requirement. The way I see it, and the way, the part that's missing of 478 in this description is that 478 assigned a penalty to the use of non-recycled content. And I personally, and not that we need to add that, but I think that is an important component here, is that ostensibly this is I don't want to use the T word, it is a fee on virgin plastic, which I think is great policy. And, in terms of investing money, whether it's bottleable money or this penalty money, I think that is actually a very appropriate use because the manufacturers are paying into that. And I totally agree we should not be using taxpayer money, but I don't believe that this is taxpayer money. One minor, very specific change I had was in number 1, if somebody could scroll up or down or wherever number 1 is. One minor change in the first line, I would strike the word PET. And the reason for that is I think it's really important that we don't disincentivize PET compared to other plastics. Jan brought up she held up the PVC thermoform packaging. I would hate to incentivize folks to move to that packaging by making PET more expensive. And the way 478 was written is that it applied to all thermoforms, and I think that's the appropriate policy. But other than that, fantastic job, John and Richard and Jeff.
For the record,
Alex, not Richard.
For the record, can you clear up all the different materials used in thermoforms? Nick?
Well, a lot of different plastics are used in thermoforms. maybe somebody who knows more than me can chime in. The ones that I see the most are PET, polypropylene, PVC, polystyrene, rigid polystyrene. Those are the ones I seem to see the most.
So you're supporting that polystyrene and PVC be recycled?
It's not necessarily that. If you look at the way 478 was structured, if you're not achieving the recycled content, which they would not, you have to pay penalties. And so it ensures an even playing field, that the folks who do not use any recycled content don't get an advantage by, not having to meet the same requirements, because they have to pay penalties in lieu of the recycled content. And I think that's a smart approach.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, because I was going to talk about possibly helping to remove some of the contamination from the stream by banning the use of certain materials that are clearly contaminating the stream, but I'll hold on that. So,
and just one second, just to be clear, that's not at all contradicting with my recommendation.
Okay.
I think that's fantastic, and I actually think that might have been what Jan suggested in terms of the PVC work group or committee or whatever.
Okay. Great. So Commissioner Ward and then Vice Chair Valle.
Thank you. And yes, thank you, Commissioner Davis and everybody else who worked on this. It's a very complicated issue. And for that reason, I don't really have any language changes, but the issues that I'm concerned about, I don't see that this policy directly addresses waste prevention or source reduction. And I really think that needs to be part of the discussion. If nothing else, and just as Chair Sanborn pointed out, in clarifying what materials can and should be used in thermoform packaging, because if they look identical to the customer and we're actually trying to separate recoverable streams, then that's a no-go, because you can't tell this thermoform, look for this number, except the complicated instructions to customers is a non-starter. We need to do better than that. And so maybe that's one way, but we need to have waste prevention and source reduction addressed here. Also, I think this might be an opportunity to look at how we can have a resin-focused policy. As I had introduced before, I'm not exactly sure how, but the producers need to pay, and whether that's a fee on virgin use, there needs to be a focus specifically on the folks who are producing this resin and pushing it to the folks who are using it in packaging. We need to change that dynamic and be more forthright in that approach. And then finally, one of the wording changes that was suggested in the comments specifically tried to avoid the word downcycling. I think it is actually essential that this policy talk about downcycling, because that is the reality of plastics recycling for the most part, which is it's used once, it's used into a lower grade, and then it's trash. That's the life history of the best of recycled products that are made of plastic for the most part. We want to do better, but right now that's the reality, and it's appropriate that we describe it as such.
Thank you, Commissioner Valle. And then Don Levy.
Thank you. I think one of the key issues that is going to be really difficult for us, and for example on thermoforms, is the reluctance to go to alternative packaging that Commissioner Dell pointed out. If the chemical industry or whoever creates the resins for these plastics has already invested millions of dollars in infrastructure manufacturing these resins, and let's say, for example, that plant where these resins are coming from are out of state, somewhere else where labor is cheaper, land is cheaper, manufacturing is cheaper, taxes are cheaper, etc. Then clearly maximizing profit is the incentive. And so I think another part of our research in our committee should be, where do these products generate? Where are they generated from? What's the genesis? Where were they created? And that may tell us a lot about why people would be not incentivized to change their manufacturing behavior? And that's a key question that we have to ask, I think, as we look at all of these products, especially when it comes to plastics, because those are huge capital investments, and the industry is not going to want to change. If anything, what they're going to do is try to incentivize companies like ours to accept that material and recycle it or capture it in our curbside streams. And one of the incentives that they'll offer is, we'll buy you a sorting machine, or we'll buy you some equipment. That's a one-time capital cost. That's a drop in the bucket. If we felt as a company, for example, where I work, that we could make a return on investment, we would buy the equipment ourselves. We wouldn't need an incentive or a subsidy from a manufacturer to buy equipment, whether it's robotic or otherwise. If there was enough value in the material, once it was baled, processed, and shipped, we would make that investment ourselves without their help. So I think that we have to be really careful when a manufacturer says, I'm going to pay for your equipment. Well, that's a one-time small cost. You don't have to do that. Just give me the value that I need to make it worth my while to separate and capture your material. That has more value to me as a recycler collector. Those are key questions. Thermoforms require a lot of space. We have a 70,000 square foot warehouse. If we were going to capture thermoforms in our warehouse, which we currently don't, we'd have to create a bunker. And then we'd have to make enough space to make just one bale. And remember, in our industry, we sell by a container full. In other words, 44,000 pounds or 22 to 23 tons per shipment. For example, when we market cardboard, we'll market 8 to 10 containers per shipment. When we send aluminum to a buyer, we send 44,000 pounds at a time. Same with PET. Thermoforms take up a lot of space. Our system would require that we'd have to hand pick these materials, and then we'd have to educate our staff on which of those thermoforms to pick and not pick. So we've never done that, and primarily because of the cost, the space that it takes, and the fact that there is no return on investment. The last thing I want to say is, I think that Commissioner Dell's passionate explanation was based on the reality that when we look at plastics and the fact that it's getting into our food stream, that's a genuine issue that I want to be a part of. So I would volunteer to talk about food grade plastics, and that would be a new area for our commission to look at. I think it's critically important as we work to clean up our environment. We should also look at cleaning up our health, our diet, and the people around us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to Commissioner Donlevy and then public comment and then Commissioner Schneider.
Thank you. Do you want to capture the public comment first and then come back to me?
Sure, I'm gonna hear the public comment.
Public comment is from Octavia Victal with Green Impact. Prices are dropping, but thermoform flake is still sold at less than bottle flake. We avoid the use of virgin plastic by not increasing the prices at a point where nobody will use our product. Freight is also a big issue.
Okay, thank you, Octavio, and we'll go back to Commissioner Donlevy.
Okay, thank you. Wow, lots to go over here. With the preface that the policy was just about thermoforms and separate from the bottle bill, I think that's what needs to happen with this policy. I think Commissioner Lapis was right on point. We shouldn't be focused on PET thermoforms. We should be focused on all thermoforms. And with what Commissioner Ward and Commissioner Valle and Commissioner Dell were saying is we have to avoid downcycling. We got to get the consumers to change their behavior on what is recyclable, what's actually getting recycled, and let them know what can and can't be recycled. Because that'll ultimately drive the manufacturers to start changing their behavior and hopefully move into items that can be recycled. When I first got on the commission, it was really to identify what is recyclable. And with SB 343, that's the most powerful tool that we have available to us, is identifying what is actually recycled. And one of the criteria is the material being separated? Hopefully all the cities and the curbside programs are going to reset their program and only accept material that they are separating and getting paid for. To say that thermoforms have to exceed a certain amount, I don't want to get into the discussion about the current price of mixed paper, the current price of cardboard, because they all have different values based on their volume, space, and the ability to process with them. If this policy was just recycled content for thermoforms and we stopped there, I could agree with it. But this policy is, the way it's written, is 95% about the bottle bill and either protecting revenue paid to curbside programs, which is important because if those go down, it could affect ratepayers and what they're paying for their programs. It's also trying to incentivize payments for higher quality, but we're using bottle bill funds that are not taxpayer funds, they're consumer deposits that were put down. So we'd be using that money to support an item that is not in the bottle bill that I could just never support. Any of the unredeemed deposits that we have right now in the fund, they should be used to open up more redemption centers, bag drop systems, or RVMs. I like the target that Commissioner Dell identified, 1 per 40,000. That would be 10,000 potential locations in the state, which would provide a greater convenience that we truly need. With what Commissioner Lapis was talking about, yes, we need to address all thermoforms and hopefully drive the manufacturers that are using PVC, polystyrene, maybe it's vinyl, move them into the PET thermoform. Or as Commissioner Dell was pointing out, alternatives, maybe fiber, which is going to create a higher demand for the mixed paper and could be recycled multiple times. So with this policy, just questions for the authors as far as linking the financial incentives to make sure they're adequate to cover the costs of collection and processing for either Commissioner Oseguera or Commissioner Davis. Are you suggesting that the policy have some mandate that would pay lower volume facilities? I'll use as an example, Commissioner Valle's facility, a lower volume facility that would have a higher operating cost per ton, paying them more for their material than, say, a high volume facility, let's say the Pointy Hills MRF, that has many more tons going through it and paying them a lower number. Is that what you're suggesting, that the policy differentiate what facilities get paid?
Commissioner Dunleavy, no. It was truly, the language was aiming at creating a functioning market. And so that was more the aim of it, Commissioner Dunleavy. But to others, just a reminder, Commissioner Davis and I were tasked with trying to create a thermoform policy that was aligned to where we started and bifurcating that from the bottle bill. So that's what we tried to do here. I understand Commissioner Dell's, comments and her, enlightenment to us about these materials and what they turn into and food grade and how that's affected in terms of a health policy. That wasn't what we attempted to do here, although there's additional discussion needed there. as Commissioner Dell has mentioned. The intent here was to clean up where we started and get back to thermoforms. And so obviously additional discussion needed regarding the policy, but that was what we were intending to do.
Okay, did you get everything you needed, Commissioner Dunleavy, or?
Oh, no. Keep going. Yeah, because I just didn't want to have this policy interpreted that we're getting into a government system that is going to be driving or dictating pricing where the buyers have to negotiate separately with all the different facilities that are out there. So I just can't support any type policy that is forcing a price on the buyers. We have to let the capital markets and free trade apply. If people need material to meet post-consumer mandates, they'll have to pay the prices to the people willing to do the separation. And to me, that's the key, is only accepting material that's being separated. And if the price gets high enough, more people will accept it and start doing the separation.
So just so I understand, what is your position?
I think that's what we tried to say, just to be clear. Maybe the language didn't come across that way, but that's what we were trying to get to, a market-driven price for that versus a government-created price. So if the language is not clear, it would have to be made clear, but it wasn't the intent to create artificial markets.
Yeah, and that's where I go with Commissioner Lapis. Item 1, if it was just, recycled content requirement should be set for thermoforms and then just not reference pricing. Just clean it up so nobody misinterprets it thinking that it's going to be a forced price. So,
okay, so just to make sure we can get to this resolved, can we track changes and make sure that we got this right if everybody agrees to it? Sounds like that's where we intended to go. No? Commissioner Dell is saying no. Okay, then
I don't agree. I don't agree with recycled content for food grade thermoforms, period. Do not agree. Toxics, huge toxics risks. The safety controls are not there. Just to follow up on the point that was just raised, I don't believe, I've been in the business sector for 35 years before doing what I do now. There are no sustainable artificial markets. There are no sustainable propped up markets. We need to figure out how to get the materials that can't be used and reuse items that aren't reusable into streams that have a good market. Look, this paper packaging now can go into the grade 52 bale, 54, 52. The mixed paper bale, no problema. We don't have to go make a pouch market, right? Same thing with, there are cardboard thermoforms. They're paperboard thermoforms everywhere. Those can go, they're not sticky. They don't have cheese on them. They can go into a mixed bale. There's already a market happening. We need to focus on getting material changes into material streams that have strong markets, not trying to prop up and create artificial markets. And the food grade risks on this are just an absolute no-go for me.
okay, thank you. Then I guess we won't change that now. So Commissioner Dunleavy, do you have any other suggested changes or questions on that proposal?
Yeah, for item 2, talking about the individual commingled rates, just for thermoforms, I think my position is, and I think the representative from Republic Services talked about every facility having different quality levels. And I think the facilities that have good quality and higher content of CRV should be paid more than the facilities that have lower quality and less CRV. So this gets into the commingled rate discussion. So I think we heard from PRCC, and we saw that some facilities are being overpaid, some are being underpaid. I think we should look into the commingled rate that pays facilities fairly for what they are producing, and that'll create the incentive to produce higher quality and remove contaminants from the system. We just can't have a one-way incentive, and I think that item 2 is creating a one-way incentive to only reward the facilities separating the thermoforms with a higher number. I think it needs to be fair across the board, and it should apply to not just PET bales, but also HDPE bales, aluminum bales, and then somehow figure out how we apply this to glass. So all facilities are paid fairly for the quality and the CRV content that they are selling to producers. So that would be on item number 2. Item 3, separate funds are not affected. The current commingle rate, they had talked about the quality incentive payment that is to be paid through the end of June 2022. I think that should sunset. We should not extend it. I think we should just wait to see from CalRecycle how many facilities actually qualified for it, and see if there's any facilities that change their processes to qualify for it at the end. And hopefully the market factors will apply to that, where they move from the B grade, which is a lower value, up to the A grade, which again, markets are going up on A grade because the reclaimers and the manufacturers, they want that high quality material that can be food grade, that is not cross-contaminated with other plastics in there. So with 3, again, I already mentioned, it can't support anything regarding thermoforms using or tweaking the bottle bill, or using bottle bill funds that supports a non-bottle bill commodity, and that would be number 3.
So you're saying remove number 3?
I think strike
we're
number.
gonna have to start getting to the point so other people can talk. I'm sorry, or else, because we're already at 11:30.
Commissioner Sanborn, if we have to extend this to another meeting, I think we probably will, but I don't want to be cut short on this because it is a very important topic.
Well, I just wanted to understand what so you're suggesting 3 should go away.
I think all reference to the bottle bill should go away. I think what Commissioner Lapis indicated at the start, it should just be a very simple bill, post-consumer content on thermoforms, and then address it that way. Any reference to the bottle bill just opens up Pandora's box and takes us into long, drawn-out discussions that I don't think this commission will get consensus on. So item 4, continuing the QIP payment, I already addressed that. I think it's good that it's a stimulus right now. Let's see if there's facilities that change their practices to improve their quality and reward them. But I don't think it should be a long-term entitlement. The glass quality incentive payments, $10 million out of the fund every year. I think we heard from Strategic, if the original one, quality for glass has only gone down, even though the quality incentive payment has remained. At this point, that quality incentive payment for glass is just a offset to processing costs. So if we're going to create a quality incentive payment, it should be short-term and focused to change behavior, not to reward or enrich existing behavior where they've already been getting higher scrap prices because they generate the A grade material. So you're paying them twice. They're getting paid for the higher A grade, and I know facilities that are getting paid the A grade price, and now we're going to pay them, and they're not really changing their quality practices because they got it already and they've been rewarded for that with higher market prices. As far as item number 5, scrap value needs to increase to develop functioning markets. We talked about that earlier.
Commissioner Davis, can you scroll to 5 so people can track things? Go ahead. Thank you.
So if there's a demand for the product, the buyers will pay a higher price for it. And if that's not a high enough price to pay for recovery, I think it's simple that the programs just don't need to accept it. Only accept in programs what can be recycled and turned into new products and not downcycled, that provides a long-term market for it. And again, if thermoform pricing is 15, 19 cents a pound, mixed paper cardboard pricing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cents a pound, whatever it is right now. If you're going to accept items in your program that have fluctuating market prices, those could always go back to the ratepayers if they're demanding the service that material be collected. Otherwise, it could just be omitted. Consumers could be told to put that in their garbage, and hopefully that would change their behavior, because if all we're doing is mixing it with other material, sending it someplace, we don't know that it's actually getting recycled. We need to change people's behavior, and I think if we say things are not recyclable and we don't accept them, that could create different behavior or create demand for alternative packaging that can be recycled. Already addressed it. Item 6, talking about opticals or other mechanical sorting equipment. Commissioner Valle addressed that. Many producers are out there offering trinkets in the form of 6-figure optical sorters, robotics, things like that, but they're not providing a long-term stable market for it. So again, I think that should just be pulled. And then as far as the reference to PRCC 14506.7 with the commingled rate, we go down to that. That's correct. 14506.7 does not require the state commingled rate, but moving down in the statute, 14549.5 does identify that CalRecycle will set statewide rates or statewide commingled rates based on their different sampling methodology. I think with both 14506.7 and 14549.5, those should be changed to reflect the material that is shipped from a facility. Right now, the commingled rates are based on inbound studies, not on what actually goes out of the facility. And I think there should be individual rates by facility, because some facilities have installed very good equipment that's yielding high quality material. They should see that in the form of better commingled rates, and not dragged down by facilities that have lower quality and contamination rates, where they're paid on the statewide rate. And that reflects what PRCC presented, where you have facilities that are overpaid and some that are underpaid. So I think the changing the commingled rate, and again, for aluminum, glass, PET, and HDPE, will change that. Let's see, a couple more things. And then if we're going into the commingled rate, CalRecycle did their bale rate study back in 2017, and they identified that there's items that are not defined in statute, whether it's an actual container is not defined in statute, what contamination is, what out of grade material is, or shrink or yield. Shrink or yield, I think, applies mainly to aluminum, where bales coming out of some curbside facilities are contaminated. The commingled rate pays them for all the weight that is shipped, but that material ends up at a secondary processing facility where the actual yield or recovery might only be 80 down to 70%, some facilities down to 60%. So the commingled rate should be set based on what's actually recovered from those bales that are shipped from the facilities. And again, this will be an incentive for facilities to improve quality and change behavior, and not artificially prop up facilities that might have lower quality or lower yields, because again, there are facilities that are generating high quality material. So going back to the original statement, if this was just about thermoforms, I think it's something that could be supported. We have to address food grade versus non-food grade, but eliminating basically everything related to the bottle bill would help. But as I've talked for the last 10 or 15 minutes, if we're going to address the bottle bill, we're going to have to address a lot more before we get consensus. So thank you. Sorry for the extensive.
I just want to make sure everybody gets heard, and it's all very helpful though. You have a lot of knowledge in this area. So, okay, we'll move on to, is there a public comment? It looks like.
Yes, there's a public comment from Chuck Helgett with Republic Services. Recommendation 6 appears to support a single commingled rate that rewards lower thermoform content. I recommend that the commission clarify that a facility can apply for a higher commingled rate if they can show their bales are below X%, but X% needs to be validated and not just 2%, since there are processors who accept and can handle a higher percent of thermoform, and ensure that the existing commingled rate is still valid unless a facility applies and is approved for the better rate for bales that meet X%.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, we'll go to Commissioner Schneider and Dell. Well, actually, I'm going to go to Commissioner Schneider. We haven't heard from her. And then anybody else who has not spoken who wants to speak, I'll let you go before I let other people keep coming in on the same issue, just to make sure everybody has a voice in this. Okay, Commissioner Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the committee that worked on this. I can support it because I see it as one part of a bigger package. I hear Commissioner Dell's pain on that. And this is awkward to bring it up. Ted and I are the committee of 2 working on waste prevention. One of the subsets of that is takeout food packaging. And I would love to be able to talk to Commissioner Dell, because I'm using San Mateo County that has the takeout food packaging to go towards compostables or truly recyclables. And that includes takeout food from a Safeway or a supermarket, for example. And our ordinances are in place. We're already beginning to see the changes. And I hope that it might get rid of some of the thermoforms that are not truly recyclable. But again, recyclability should never be used as an excuse for a bad product. So I feel a little trapped and would love to work with Commissioner Dell on food grade plastics, because it fits very much into takeout food packaging. And I know that's not the topic at hand. So I'm just throwing that out there. This committee of 2 and not being able to talk to a third commissioner, this is yet another problem with that. But thank you, gentlemen, for working on this. More and more, I think, simplifying the types of plastics in our waste stream, simplifying what we collect, which we talked about last year, and I was one of the non-early adopters of that. I really think that that's the message California should be sending. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to skip Commissioner Dell since she's spoken and come back to her and Don Levy. Commissioner Kalpikoff and then Ferrante, and then we'll go back.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanborn. I want to say thanks to the 2 authors who kind of took a holistic approach at this policy. I completely understand what Commissioner Dell and Commissioner Don Levy are saying in terms of long-term PET recyclability, food grade. I get it. I think this policy takes a look at today and what's in the current waste streams today and how to create a market for that, the PET thermoforms, by creating or adding minimum content. It doesn't financially hurt current MRFs and current curbside programs, but it offers an incentive to those who want to take that bale or have the optical sorters of the technology to reward them for making a bottle-to-bottle PET grade, creating a market for thermoform. So while it may not be 100% perfect in the long run, in 10 years, 5 years, I think it creates this market today, which allows us to process what's in the waste stream until the manufacturers can recreate products. But it definitely fixes, it's a Band-Aid on a bigger issue, and I support it.
Thank you. Commissioner Ferrante.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity around Commissioner Don Levy's comments. Maybe I'm oversimplifying this, Jeff, but you talk about supporting a separate thermoform policy and pulling it out from the bottle bill. what I gathered from all of your comments was, if we're to do that, then what you're supporting is minimum recycled content requirements for thermoform containers, and that's it. And all of this discussion on the commingled rate really has nothing to do with thermoform containers. It's part of a larger issue. So if you're talking about, I mean, it sounds to me like that's where you're looking to draw the line. Just make this thermoform policy about minimum recycled content and put all of this commingled rate discussion into a larger discussion about how to address various issues in the beverage container program under the bottle bill. The commingled rate, you know, I think I've said this before, I don't really care for this discussion about being overpaid or underpaid, as it were, under the commingled rate. I mean, the commingled rate is intended to address the issue of contamination of all kind, or just not for, you know, if we're just talking PET bottles, anything that's non-CRV PET in a bale. So I don't really care for this overpaying, underpaying terminology. If you're advocating returning to individual commingled rates and eliminating the statewide commingled rate altogether, then maybe that's something we should discuss. And I think it was our last meeting, CalRecycle came, and forgive me, I can't remember who was speaking, but the question did come up about, you know, will we see a return to individual commingled rate, and when and how and why? And I believe the answer we got was, yeah, it's on the table. We're looking at it. We don't know what to do about it yet. But it seems to me that that might address a lot of these issues if we could find a way to support a return to an individual commingled rate outside of the discussion of thermoform containers. So.
Thank you. I don't think we've heard from Commissioner Skies. I'm going to let him go first.
Could I respond to that? It will be really quick.
Sure.
Yeah, so Commissioner Fonte, thank you. Yes, if we just talked about post-consumer content and thermoforms, it would be a much simpler policy because getting into the bottle bill is extensive. A couple of things as far as misunderstanding of the bottle bill and the program. Individual commingled rates were assigned to jurisdictions, to curbside programs. So a city that had a higher CRV percentage would be paid a higher commingled rate. And those were done based on inbound studies. They're not addressing what the CRV content is on the backside after processing. So the commingled rate does not address contamination. And that was clearly identified in the CalRecycle bale study that shows after processing, there's anywhere from 3 to 15% contamination, other material. So they study it on the front end. So you could have a jurisdiction that has a high percentage of CRV, and they'll get rewarded for that, as they should. But then they go to a facility that puts it all into the same pile, pushes it through the system, and maybe that system is focused on production and not on quality. And then the back end has 5 to 10% contamination. That curbside program with the individual commingled rate will be paid that higher number. There's no penalty for contamination on the back end. Facilities are paid on the quantity shipped based on the commingled rate that's determined on the front end. They're not evaluated on the back end. And that's what the representative from Republic Services identified, that all facilities are different. PRCC identified it. All facilities are different. Some have good quality, some have bad quality.
Okay.
The program does not identify contamination or how that is deducted on the back end. And those are some of the definitions that would need to be expanded upon in the bottle bill. But again, that's a much bigger discussion. If we have it thermoforms only, much simpler to move forward. As soon as we bring the bottle bill in, We suck all the oxygen out of the room. We'll be here for days and weeks talking about it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask commissioners to not repeat the same things we've been hearing over and over because we're running out of time. We're now at 12:45. Did you have something to respond to that, Commissioner Ferrante?
No, I just want to say, thanks for the clarification then. I think really what I was just trying to get to was that, what you were saying, I mean, we seem to be having for quite a long time now. I don't just mean this meeting, but in general, this conversation of thermoform containers in the context of the commingled rate, and whatever the issues are with the commingled rate, that is separate and apart from this thermoform issue.
So you'd recommend that all that come out as well. You'd support Commissioner Donlevy's position on that.
Well, and that's what I was looking for some clarity on, because I appreciate, I guess, that you went through all the bullet points one by one with your input, but I'm wondering what your recommendation actually is then for this thermoform discussion.
That's what I was asking as well, actually. So if
Yeah,
there was like sections you wanted to remove.
It was confirming what Commissioner Lapis talked about at the last meeting before we got cut off, that it should be about thermoforms only. So
Okay.
Item 1, post-consumer content requirement in thermoforms, done.
Okay, and
Now
then
create the demand.
okay.
And if there's a supply there, then they'll be able to meet that demand. If not, they'll have alternative choices, either move into material that they can source,
Right.
or have an alternative compliance.
Commissioner Sky?
Given that we only have a few minutes left and we don't have a document in front of us that's ready to move forward, I would just recommend that we put this on the agenda for our next meeting, and that Commissioner Dunleavy, and actually, I think it could go back to the two-person committee to revise based on the comments today and send it out for all the commissioners to review once again. That would be my recommendation. Essentially,
I
all the
agree.
question, move this item.
There was a lot of input today, and I haven't even gotten all of mine. So I'll add mine to this, and then I think this should be a full commission discussion from here on out, because this should be everybody weighing in. We're getting to the end of this, hopefully. But I think, the value of this commission is that we weigh in on the tough stuff, and this is the tough stuff. So what I'm hearing agreement around generally, I think, is moving everything bottle bill out of this, and it'd be just about thermoforms, which I agree with. I don't think we're going to get agreement on anything else, to be honest. And then the thing I think is missing here, and a couple of commissioners did bring it up in general, is we really should look at resource reduction. And how do we reduce contamination in the stream? There are material types of thermoforms that seem, if I've got it right, are contaminants to the rest of the stream. And why do we want to consider recommending banning some of those material types out of the gate, that they're never going to help us achieve less contamination and keep this stream clean, like styrofoam, like PVC, possibly polypropylene, but I hear that those markets are growing. But is that something we can all agree on? And then
it's not gonna make it food grade. You have to read the Stina report.
That's a separate issue, though. And in my opinion, it's a separate issue. It's just one part of contamination. And so the other thing I heard, and I agree with, is we have to be really, really, I just read an article yesterday in The Guardian that said we've now passed the tipping point on the 5th of 9 of Earth's systems. And the latest is chemical contamination. We have created so much chemical pollution in the environment. We literally have changed the world for good. There's only so much we can do now to fix it. And that the regulations and the systems we've set up are not catching some of the dangerous chemicals that we're being exposed to. So that to me is very concerning. And I think we need to have a whole discussion around safety and how is it going to be overseen, who's going to be responsible for it, what is food grade, what is not food grade, all that kind of stuff. So that's something I'd like to see somehow get addressed in here. And then, so those were, and then the producers. The producers are producing this because they have not internalized any of these costs. And so what responsibility do they have? It's, to me, limiting to materials we can find a market for, helping drive that market, keep it clean, get the PFAS out, all those kinds of things, and pay for the system. And I'm not clear from this policy yet how much they're going to be responsible for paying. So I guess that would be those are the things that I think about when I'm looking at this and hearing all these discussions. And hopefully Commissioners Osigura and Davis, you put a lot of great work into this. It really did respond to what we heard at the last meeting. Would you be open then to taking another stab at it and bringing it back to the next full commission meeting?
We would, and we could get from Commissioner Dell, it'd be great if we could get some words or verbiage regarding food grade or your expertise in terms of what we should avoid. That'd be helpful. Obviously that was not part of the original thermoform discussion, so if you could please send that to us.
I'll make it clear. The reg, I would only agree to a reg that says absolutely not for food grade thermoforms, period. That's it.
Okay, perfect. We'll try to get into there, Commissioner Dell, but if you could just send us a little sentence that says that's and where you would like that to go, so that we can get that in there. And then in terms of source reduction, there's a number of folks have talked about that. If there is, I know there's another group, trying to address this as well. If someone could send us just once again a clarifying paragraph comment, it doesn't have to have one paragraph, it could be two, regarding source reduction, that would be helpful to us. And then we'll incorporate it. We tried to make sure to bifurcate from the bottle bill. Obviously we didn't do a good job. So we will definitely, that's the easy part. I think Commissioner Davis and I can very quickly eliminate everything that has to do with the bottle bill or any connector. So we can do that. We tried also to connect to make sure that our paragraph regarding markets was about the creation of markets, not artificial markets, but functioning markets. And so we might take a stab at that paragraph to make sure that provides that kind of clarity. So, yep, we'll take a stab at it, Chair.
Much appreciated. And I think Commissioner Dell, are you done? Did you want to say?
No, I withdrew my comment, but I would just like to get it on the record for the next agenda. I would like to raise a policy recommendation that PVC bottles and PVC labels be banned, beverage bottles and labels on beverage bottles be banned in California so that we can keep the deposit system clean. And I'm open to the commission if they want to ban it more in toilet flaps and everything. Sure, let's go for it. But my focus, I believe only deposit system, everything I've read, only deposit system has the potential to be safe. Once you put in a curbside bin, it remembers who it slept with. And so deposit system is the best potential to be safe, and let's get the PVC out of the deposit system.
Okay, so that's the next agenda item 7, and we're trying to wrap this one up really quickly. Is there any other commissioners? Commissioner Lapis, and you're withdrawing for timing. Okay, thank you. So we've got a lot of different input. Thank you so much, Commissioners Davis and Osigura. Really appreciate your help. This will be, I think, our #1 issue until we can get it down, because it's in the middle of session. It was a bill that was run last year. We're trying really hard to get some input to the legislature while they're in motion. So thank you again. We'll move quickly now. I'm going to encourage you all to read the update from the Oregon liaison group, but that's really all we have time for at this point. So we'll move on to agenda item 7. And this is about next meeting and agenda items for future meetings. So we have a commission meeting, the next one in 2 weeks on February 2nd. And what I heard so far is once a month, we are talking about the education and outreach unless you request it sooner. And we got an update today. Is that okay that we not have it on the next agenda and move it to the agenda after? Or do you want to leave that on. I will, unless I hear somebody say that you want to add it, we'll not have it for the next meeting. The other one is we're going to have an item on the charter update, and we're definitely going to talk again about the thermoforms. And I think I'm actually going to probably, unless other committees are going to plan to give us some feedback, some updates to policies, I'm going to just schedule this to be pretty much a big discussion again about thermoforms in hopes we can wrap it up. Does that sound fair, reasonable? So our colleagues on the outside know? Okay, I'll go ahead and do that and not make it about. And then you let me know if there's, I'll say a separate agenda item for other committees that if they want to report out, just again, give us something in writing so we can post it, unless it's something you really want to have discussed. And the committee and a working group on toxics. I mean, this could be a whole nother agenda item for the next meeting if you would like, about food grade versus non-food grade, or we just refer, it looked like we had Commissioner Osagura and Dell, is that what I heard, working on food grade?
Well, I definitely raised my hand, and then Commissioner Valle said he would help, and then Commissioner Schneider said she would help. So I think we can take this step by step through it. You choose.
We pick two people, and then maybe another person that isn't already on another committee or something, or I think.
Commissioner Schneider.
Yeah, how about Vice Chair Valle?
I'll be working on a charter, and forgive me, I forgot about.
Okay, Commissioner Schneider, because she's got a real life situation to deal with.
Yes. Okay, so it'll be Commissioner Schneider and Commissioner Dell will come up with some proposal, and we'll do a separate agenda item on this whole issue of food grade versus, and we should probably put it first before thermoforms, just to get some input before because this was coming up on the thermoforms issue. Does that make sense?
So this is a really complicated topic. We're just not going to put on one thing and be done with it. I really have to take it point by point, and I have and we can take it, and it's a plastics issue, but ultimately it could be a paper issue too. We have to be material careful on everything. Glass and metals are inert. Okay, so anyway, let's just start with the deposit. We'll just start with fast food and the deposit bottles. Okay.
And Chair, just for the record, I did not raise my hand on the food grade, and so to be very clear on that one, yes.
Very good. So there's a Vice Chair, so it'll be Commissioners Schneider and Dell working on this. Thank you so much. And then we'll move on now, unless there's anything else on the next agenda. We'll move on to agenda item 8, which is data review and requests from CalRecycle. Did I see Commissioner Donlevy, you have a data request?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Two things. If CalRecycle could do some quick research on any curbside programs that have changed their acceptance list in the last 12 months since we originally came out with our what is recyclable list, to see if anybody has actually changed and stopped taking material. Because it's not about removing.
We have less than 30 seconds. They're going to cut us off literally.
And then a report on facilities that are accepting a wide variety of material, 3 through 7s, what's actually happening with it. I think Palo Alto, they renewed their agreement and they didn't know where their material was going.
Okay, so you've asked for 2? Okay, 3?
Yeah, Chair Sanborn, we're going to have to do something with the timing on the facility, or timing on the meetings, so we're not cut off.
I'm sorry, but we had 30 minutes lost that I had no control over first thing this morning. So what I heard was 2 things. There a third?
Well, the third would be extending time, allowing us to extend time.
Well, if commissioners want to go back to 4-hour meetings, we can, but I know I don't. Yeah, I don't think people want to do that. Okay, so I heard of two requests there, and then we already had one for feedback from them on what they believe their authority is beyond just appointing commissioners. So the last thing is to summarize. This was a very important meeting and I appreciate it. It's tough to get through all this, especially when you're cut off 30 minutes at the beginning. That was technical, not our fault. Great work. Thank you very much. And I will, I wanted to give you an update on the presentation we're giving at 12:30. Vice Chair Valle and I are going to give an update to Ledge staff on what we did and didn't. I posted this meeting, the PowerPoint, so you could all look at it. If you have any suggestions, let us know in the next 10 minutes so I can make the changes before we give it. And we'll give you lots of feedback, but they don't want it recorded and other stuff. So we'll be sure and let you know how it goes. So thank you so much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.